everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Phone Dog Live, the podcast. I'm Sydney, and there has been so much going on today and this afternoon. I have been in such a rush to be ready, to be on time, but we are on time, and we do. There's a lot to talk about. I was starting to get worried that there wasn't going to be very much to talk about at all, but then it just seemed like today and yesterday, like a million things happened, and so there's some pretty big topics. Guys on Ustream, feel free to talk about something completely off topic from what I'm talking about, because that's what you always do. But it's good to have you here. If you're watching the recording of this on YouTube, thank you also for watching. Check out the timeline below the video, and you can kind of jump around. But I'm glad everyone could be here. I'm Sydney, in case this is your first time. Hi. You probably haven't seen me, because I usually review the phones that, no one cares about, but that's okay. No, actually, I people care about them. I love reviewing them, because I think they're awesome. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and just get on to what we're going to talk about. Windows Phone 8, Google acquires Sparrow. I like how I listed that as 2 items. I somehow got to 3 by the end of that. Motorola Photon Q, Sony Mint, and then other stuff, if we can even get to it. I don't know. But I do want to start off with some unannounced Windows Phone 8 features. The SDK was recently released. I don't know if it was just to the general public or if it was just one website that happened to get it. But we got to see a couple of features that we hadn't heard about, or that we had heard about and Microsoft didn't exactly detail in the original announcement. But there's some pretty cool features, and if you're a Windows Phone fan, it will obviously be more exciting to you because you're going to use Windows Phone. But some of the little things. Okay, I get it. Thank you for the notifications. Some of the little additions, like adding more colors. There's now more color options for the themes. It's so small and it seems so lame that I'm getting excited about that. But it actually is pretty exciting because, Windows Phone is not known for customization, which is personally, one of the reasons why I really like it, because I don't have time to customize. But, new colors. I mean, it's always nice to, have a new color or have something new, maybe change around depending on your mood. And so there's 20 theme colors to choose from. Currently, I'm not sure how many colors there are. I could count right now, but I'm not going to. Currently, there's, I don't know, maybe like, say, 10 to 12 colors, and so there's a couple of new options. There's a new, actually, I have a picture of some of these colors, so you can see them. But there's kind of like some deeper tones. There's kind of like a mauve color, if that's the right way to pronounce it. Here's some of the colors. You can see there's a brown, kind of like a forest green, and then kind of like a beige color. The ones on top are the ones that we already have. I think some of those greens, I think some of those shades are new, but mostly, like, right now we have red and blue and pink and all that. But you can see kind of towards the bottom, kind of like those more subtle, deeper colors. Those are new. So I know it's a small thing, but again, like I said, if you use Windows Phone, it's pretty cool because it's something new to try out. So there will be 20 colors. Also, there's a new backup system. You can back up. I just realized that before I started the show, I didn't even look at myself in the mirror. I hope I look okay. I was ready already from this morning. I had a meeting with somebody, and so I was already dressed. And but I didn't even go into the bathroom to make sure everything was situated. Anyway, that was randomly off base, and basically, okay. So there's a new backup system, so you can now back up your SMS data, pictures, app lists, your settings. You can back all of that up in the cloud. Windows Phone already had a cloud drive. It was called SkyDrive, which you could use to store pictures and stuff. But it was kind of minimal, and whenever you reset your phone or if you got a new phone, all of the apps that you downloaded were gone. There was no list. Whereas, on Android, you whenever you first get a phone, you link your Google account. So whenever you reset it or you get a new phone, you go to the store and it's all there. You just have to re-download them. But the Windows Phone, that's not the case, and so it's kind of frustrating. Like, if you can remember the apps that you download, then you can just re-download them, but obviously that's not the best way to do it. So now there's an actual backup system so that you can back up all of that data, all those settings in the cloud. Also, there's another feature that I'm pretty sure that we had heard about this. Maybe I'm just mistaken. Maybe I was thinking about it was, maybe this was a feature with Android or something. But there's a new app called Data Sense, and it will allow you to track data. And there's actually a video that you can kind of get an idea of exactly how this is going to work. So you can see that the app will allow you to set your data limit for, a month or a couple of weeks. So say you have, a 512 meg limit, then this will allow you to track that. It'll tell you whenever you're reaching your limit. There's also a live tile, and so if you pin the app to your start screen, there's a live tile, and then it will let you know whenever you're reaching your data limit. And then it can also help, let you track like how much data you're using in a day, or what you're using it on. So kind of just a nice feature there. Photo Hub. There's kind of some additions to the Photo Hub. Again, these are some of the features that we hadn't heard about before. I think there was 8 listed, and I kind of picked the ones that really stood out to me the most. But Photo Hub is one of them that's going to be new in Windows Phone 8. Obviously, Windows Phone has a Photo Hub, but there's some new features. For example, you can select multiple images for sharing or deletion. And again, coming from a person who uses Windows Phone, this is like the greatest thing ever, okay? Because I can tell you how many times I'll be, sending a text or something, or, an MMS, and I want to send multiple pictures because, whatever, I want to. And you have to do it one by one, or I'll be sending an email, and I have to attach one picture at a time, and, it can be kind of frustrating. And so now you actually can select multiple pictures. And, it's kind of like these little features. I was saying, I feel so lame getting excited about this, but it's because I use Windows Phone, and so, all of these little things, they seem small, but when you deal with them on a daily basis, it's like they get really frustrating. So it's kind of, I relate this to some of the new hardware features that Microsoft added with Windows Phone 8, the support for multi-core processors, the support for higher resolution displays, HD displays, better cameras, and things like that. They're not groundbreaking by any means. The ability to select multiple images for sharing or deletion, or, adding more colors for, the theme, more color options for the theme, they're not groundbreaking at all, but it's kind of just a way for Windows Phone to catch up to everyone else. And that was a problem with Windows Phone for so long. It was like, yeah, it's a great operating system, and if you like it enough, then you're probably willing to put up with some of those downsides. But there were downsides. It's kind of like WebOS. Yeah, it was a great operating system, but there were some downsides. The hardware was pretty much horrible. I mean, the designs were nice, but the internals, the guts of them, were pretty much horrible. And it's kind of like that with Windows Phone. I mean, you like it, but you kind of know when you're buying it what you're getting into. Like, there's not a lot of apps in the marketplace. There's no, dual core processors or quad core processors. The displays, the highest, you're going to max out at 480 by 800. So, if you're okay with that, then you're okay with it. You buy it and you don't complain, because if you wanted to complain, you wouldn't have bought it in the first place. So, this is kind of just a nice way to get it caught up to, finally caught up to Android or caught up to iOS. And so now they can kind of be on an even keel now. And then really, it just makes the competition a little more even. Like, before, if you like Windows Phone, I like Windows Phone. And it has like 1 or 2% market share, and Android's got like 50-60%, and iOS has 30-40%. And you could always be like, well, it's just the hardware, it's really holding it back, and it doesn't have multi-core processors, it just can't compete in those areas. Well, now it can finally compete. So once Windows Phone 8 comes out and it has these new features like backing up your apps to the cloud, or being able to select multiple images, or now having multi-core processors. Now it would actually be an even competition. So we'll actually see how good Windows Phone actually is. If it's actually an operating system that a lot of people want to use or can use, however you want to put it. So a couple of the other, one other new feature, there's actually it's kind of an interesting feature. You can select which apps are allowed to send notifications to the lock screen. And at first I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. So I can tell it, I don't want push notifications from like whatever, Twitter or something. But it's actually not like that. It doesn't, block pop-up notifications. It will actually it will show you a quick status of that app, whichever app you choose, whether it's, messaging or your calendar or email or something like that. So even if you don't have any new messages or any new emails, it'll still show you the status. So it'll say like 0 messages. So right now, on your lock screen, if you have a new email, it'll show it there. Or if you have a calendar event, it'll show it there. But only if you have stuff that you need to be notified of. But now you can select apps to all the time, 24/7, give you a quick status of that app. So it'll tell you have 0 messages or no calendar events. So kind of just an interesting, nice little feature there. Those are some of the unannounced features of Windows Phone 8. And there's also a new Bing feature. I actually have a video of Bing kind of redesigned. You can see if you scroll from the Bing search page, it has theater information, top news from your area, things like that. So kind of interesting. I don't know that I will particularly use that feature since I have my own theater app. But just some of those unannounced features, and seems to be shaping up quite nicely. Like I said, most of Windows Phone 8 is not like a dramatic redesign. I mean, you do have the ability to resize resize the tiles, but it's mostly not a dramatic redesign. It's mostly just like I said, getting it caught up to everyone else, which it's about time. It's been a year now, and it still only has single core processors, and the most we get is like a Super AMOLED display, and it's just not good enough. You can't compete with that kind of hardware and with those kind of features. So we'll see. Windows Phone 8 is rumored to be launching in November. That's coming from a source speaking to ZDNet. Now, according to Stephen Elop, Nokia's CEO, he says that Windows Phone 8 will be launched in October. So, kind of November, October, September timeframe. That's what we're hearing, which is a little more specific. I mean, before when Microsoft first showed us Windows Phone, they kind of just said the fall. And so, at least for me, typically, I automatically thought October, November, because I think that's what most people think of as the fall. I think that could also include September, though, technically. I'm not sure when fall actually technically starts, but I think it could include September. But I naturally thought of like October, November anyway. So, and that's what we're hearing. So I actually had a prediction that was right. Wow, this is amazing. We should celebrate this together. This is a special moment for me. If it does actually happen, if it is actually released in October or November. But so we'll get to see, exactly what it's going to be like. And Windows 8 we do have a solid release date for that, although I can't remember it off the top of my head at the moment. Is it October? Is Windows 8 supposed to be released in October? We do have a solid release date for that from Microsoft. And so some people were kind of thinking that Windows Phone 8 would be released like basically the same time as Windows 8, since they are so similar. They share the same kernel now, same architecture. So it kind of confirms they will be released basically around the same time. Let's move on from Windows Phone 8 features to email. Sparrow. Sparrow has been acquired by Google. If you don't know about Sparrow, it's an Apple. It's not an Apple. It is. the team, it's a 5-person team who created an email client for iOS and Mac OS 10. So they have an iOS app and they have a desktop Mac app, but it's Apple only. And so it's been acquired by Google, which is kind of interesting and seems a little bit backwards, but whatever. They're basically an app developer, so I mean, they can develop apps. It doesn't matter which platform it's for. So yeah, if you don't know about it, that's what it is. But it's a really popular one. It's the highest rated one, I think in the store, if not one of the highest rated ones. And so now it's been acquired, which is acquired by Google, which is, there's some good news about this, and there's, some bad news about it also. The bad news is that because it has not been acquired, the developers have said that they will not be updating their apps. They will continue to be available. You can go to the Mac App Store right now and buy it, but they won't be getting any more updates. They won't be really adding anything. They won't be improving it at all, which is kind of disappointing because the desktop app is actually $10, and so if you bought it, you're not going to get any more updates. You're basically out $10. I mean, it's still a great app, but it's not going to get any better. Eventually, another app will catch up to it and then surpass it in terms of quality. The funny thing is, so I have like 4 or 5 email accounts. They're all different. They're like, old ones that my friends still use because they haven't figured out to send me, send email to my new ones. They're work emails, personal emails. I have one email address with my maiden name in it, and I wanted to change it to my married name, and so now I had to create a new account. So I have so many email accounts, and I was trying to just get it all linked to one email account and just send it all to one inbox, but it wasn't working. Even though technically with Gmail I can do that, it wasn't working at all. And so I started looking for a desktop Mac email application, and I almost got Sparrow. This was like a week and a half ago or something. I almost got Sparrow because it was so highly rated, but when I went to get it, it was like $10, and I'm like, I'm not gonna pay $10. I can just use a desktop Apple email client, which, yes, I am ashamed to say I use the desktop Apple email client. This is how far I have come since I've been working for PhoneDog. When I first started working for PhoneDog, I hated Apple with a fiery passion. I hated anybody who owned, liked, or looked at an Apple product with anything other than disdain. I just detested everything to do with Apple. But whenever I first started working for PhoneDog, we use iMovie to edit our videos, and so I was given a MacBook. My first MacBook ever owned, and I felt like I had betrayed myself. I felt like I had just abandoned all of my principles, but I had no choice. It was for my job. So fast forward to 2.5 years later, I will never own a Windows PC again. I mean, I own one now, but it's not mine, it's my husband's. So there is one in the house, but I don't think I will ever buy a Windows PC again, just because, I still don't like Apple. I still hate their business practices, but Mac OS, the computers are just so much, the quality. And I understand, yeah, well, they're like, $2,000, of course. They better be good. Well, they are good, okay? But it's not just the hardware and the computer itself, it's the operating system. It's so much more stable and reliable and pretty and simple. It's a lot simpler than Windows. Anyway, so I went from, hating Apple to now I own a MacBook Pro and I will never buy a Windows PC again. And then I got to the point where, okay, iOS is fine, the iPhone, and then I got to the point where the iPhone was the hottest device ever. I don't like iOS personally, but I've accepted it, but I do think that the iPhone is the best looking phone on the market right now, and for the foreseeable future. So then that progressed, and now I'm to the point where I am shamefully using the desktop Apple email client. I feel like I've completely abandoned all morals, all of my principles. They're just gone out the window. They're gone. Anyway, that whole long story was basically to tell you that I almost spent $10 on Sparrow, but I didn't. And then like 3 days later, it gets bought by Google. And I'm like, wow, am I a genius or what? No, I'm not a genius because I didn't actually know it was going to get bought by Google. But anyway, wonderful story. You're welcome. You are very welcome. So that's the bad news. The good news is that the iOS Gmail client sucks. Well, that's also bad news. But because it sucks, it's good news that Google bought Sparrow, who created a very highly rated iOS Gmail client. You see where I'm going with this? The hope is that the iOS Gmail client will drastically improve. Because that would be the most obvious that would be the most obvious scenario, the most obvious prediction. There's that word again, prediction. The most obvious prediction because, Sparrow, it's an iOS email client. The iOS Gmail client sucks, so that Google just buys Sparrow, brings on the developers to improve the iOS Gmail application, and it's better and it's awesome and everyone wins. There's the other side of it is like, okay, well that works, that's great. But Sparrow also had a desktop Mac client, and so does this mean that Google is going to create a desktop Gmail application? Well, that doesn't quite make sense because Google is, and this was a good point brought out by Ars Technica, Google has long advocated that everything should be done within a browser, which makes sense because Chrome OS is, all those Chromebooks, Chrome OS is basically a web browser. And so everything is, you can use Google Docs, you can use, YouTube, you can use Picasso, you can use all of those, browser extensions and add-ons to do all of your work. So for Google to commission the creation of a desktop app, it wouldn't exactly make sense. Maybe they're going to create an iOS Gmail client that's better, but what about the desktop side of Sparrow? Kind of like an unanswered question there. But there's also another scenario that could possibly happen. I think the iOS Gmail client is the most likely to happen, but there's also the possibility that Google could be using Sparrow's developers to create a more robust Android mail client. Now, I'm not talking about the Gmail app. The Gmail app is great. It's the Android Gmail app is best. It's one of the best. But the IMAP client sucks, and I can tell you this from personal experience. Like whenever you get an Android phone, and there's always like out of the box there's a Gmail app and then the email app, and you're like, what the heck is that for? I already have a Gmail app. The email app is for bringing in your IMAP, your POP3 accounts, and all of that. And so for PhoneDog, it goes through Gmail, but it's actually an IMAP account. And so in order for me to get my PhoneDog email on an Android phone, I can't use Gmail. I have to use that mail app. And it sucks. The design is nowhere near the Gmail client. It's like, it's like the freaking stepchild. They treat it like some outcast, and it's just like, Google, why would you put this piece of crap app on your Android phones, and you make the Gmail app all great and stuff, and yeah, it's so wonderful, I wish I could use it, but I can't. You're not going to convince me to, stop using my work email. I have to use my work email. And the IMAP client, it's not pretty at all. The features are not the same. It's just not very well designed. I hate it so much that, going back to trying to link all of my email accounts into one inbox, that was another reason for that was because the Android IMAP client sucks so much that I want to use the Gmail app. So I'm trying to get like my work email and my old Yahoo accounts to go all to my Gmail account, and it won't work. I don't know if it's supposed to work or I'm doing it wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right and it's not working. So there's a possibility that Google will use the Sparrow developers to improve the Android email IMAP client, which is a possibility, and I think that would be great. Me personally, I use that app There's probably a ton of business users who also use that app who can't use the Gmail client or the Gmail app because their work email is, POP3 or IMAP or something. So I think that would be great. I think it's very needed. Whether they use Sparrow for that or not, I think they need to fix that app stat pronto anyways. So we'll see if they do use the Sparrow guys for that to make it better. But the most likely scenario is that they will simply use it to improve the iOS email or the iOS Gmail client. Which is a good thing. iOS users are really happy about that, and they should be. If you bought Sparrow, if you paid, $3 for the iOS app or $10 for the desktop app, it sucks. Because, it's basically abandoned now. And it's so funny. If you go to the App Store, whether on your iPhone or on, Mac, the Mac App Store, the reviews, it used to have the best reviews. It was 4 or 5 stars, whatever the max is. It was so highly rated. And I went there today to see if it was still available, and it is. And the rating had gone down to 1 star. And I'm just like, what the heck? I thought this was a great app. And there's so many people that are pissed off. There's thousands of just horrible 1-star reviews because Google bought you and now you're not gonna send us updates, and I feel like I just wasted $10 and you've abandoned us and all this crap. And so there are a lot of Apple users that are very upset. But it will get better. If the iOS Gmail client gets better, then it'll be worth it. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm just glad that I didn't buy it. I almost did. I was close, but so I saved myself. I feel good about that. Let's move on to the Motorola Photon Q. This is a new phone coming to Sprint, but there are a couple of things that are pretty noticeable about it, or pretty, what's the word I'm thinking of? Notable, not noticeable, notable. For one thing, it will feature an unlockable bootloader, which is great. I know all of the Android hackers are extremely excited about that, and so Sprint says that it has been working with developers to make sure that feature is available, and so it will come with a user unlockable bootloader. Sprint also said that future other products will also have the same option. So I'm assuming just other products that come down the line, Motorola products that come down the line, they will also have user unlockable bootloaders. So that's one notable thing about it. Another notable thing about it, as you will see from a picture, is that it has a physical QWERTY keyboard. From the name, obviously, you can kind of tell that, Motorola Photon Q. It has a physical QWERTY keyboard, and this is kind of notable, one, because there's not really any smartphones out there anymore with physical keyboards, but also because Motorola happens to make some really great physical keyboards. And I know with the original Droid and even the Droid 2, that keyboard sucked. I mean, it was awful. It was just horrible. But it's gotten better with the Droid 3 and the Droid 4. Physical keyboard is just top notch, and so you can tell from that picture that it's basically the keyboard from the Droid 4. So it has a physical keyboard, but it's also a great physical keyboard. And you guys know, if you're new to Phone Dog, you might not know because I haven't reviewed a phone with a physical keyboard in a while. But if you've been watching for a long time, you know that I am extremely picky about physical keyboards. Because back when I did messaging phones, they all had keyboards, and I would be so picky about keyboards. People would hate me so much. They would leave all these comments, they friggin' hated how hard I was on these keyboards. But I'm picky, and forgive me for wanting a good keyboard and not wanting, a keyboard where the space bar is smushed in a row of letters. I mean, what the heck kind of sense does that make? Anyway, so I was so picky. People would get so mad at me, but whatever. I mean, I'm doing a review and I want to tell you this keyboard sucks. So I can be extremely picky, and this keyboard looks good. So I'm thinking I'm gonna like it. And I have a soft spot for physical keyboards. I tweeted today, about the Photon Q, and somebody asked me, yeah, but who uses physical keyboards anymore? And I'm just like, I would if I found a phone that that I liked that had a keyboard. I mean, I obviously right now I use a phone that doesn't have a keyboard, but that's because there aren't really a lot of phones out there with keyboards that I like. But if I found one that I liked that had a keyboard, I would definitely buy it. Even, I've said before, I think the Windows Phone virtual keyboard is the best virtual keyboard on the market, and I will fight to the death to prove that, because I think it is. But even then, it just can't stand up to a physical keyboard. I mean, having those buttons there where you actually feel them and I am pressing the S or the T or whatever it is. There's this level of security that you just can't get with a virtual keyboard. Even though in the end you type out a sentence and you're like, oh wow, there's actually no mistakes there. But it's just, I still feel better with a physical QWERTY. So the Photon Q has a keyboard. Also, on-screen buttons. And whenever I saw this, I was like, thank you, Motorola. It is about freaking time. Okay, I'm so tired of all of these manufacturers releasing phones that released with Ice Cream Sandwich. I mean, a phone that released with Android 2.3 and then got updated to Android 4.0. I understand it already had physical buttons, or it already had the capacitive touch buttons, but manufacturers releasing phones with Android 4.0, mind you, Android 4.0 is designed for virtual keyboards. I mean, for virtual buttons. The operating system is made to have virtual buttons on the screen, and yet they force it to have physical buttons or capacitive buttons. And it's ridiculous, because not only is there no point to it, because the operating system will take care of itself, but it also screws up the experience. For example, this is one of the problems that I had with the HTC One S, which I eventually got used to, mostly because the phone was so awesome, and Ice Cream Sandwich was so awesome. But it has capacitive buttons like every other freaking Ice Cream Sandwich phone out there. It has capacitive buttons, and so whenever you're using the phone and the phone actually needs to do something related to Ice Cream Sandwich, like with a different set of buttons. And so this black bar will come up at the bottom, which is that one button, the menu button. It's just a giant black bar with just the menu button. And it's just like, if you would just give in to Ice Cream Sandwich and just let the phone display whatever buttons it needs to display, then it will always have that bar. It won't randomly pop up. It won't only have like one button because you already have all these other physical buttons. It'll take care of itself. It'll always have the buttons that it needs. And manufacturers, they keep fighting against it. They keep releasing these Ice Cream Sandwich phones with physical buttons, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's freaking stupid. And so finally, somebody got the point. The Motorola Photon Q has on-screen buttons, and this is a great thing, because if an app needs a back button and a menu button and then some other like random button that isn't just a standard like menu button or whatever, the developer can tell the phone, display this bar with these buttons, and the phone will display it. Whereas when you have physical buttons, it just pops up a thick black bar with just that one button that the app needs. It works so much better. It creates a very consistent and smooth experience, and I think it's going to help a lot. I wish other manufacturers would do it. It's the way that it should be. It's the way that it's meant to be. Android 4.0 is designed to what's the word? Automatically create virtual buttons to fit every situation. The operating system is designed to do that. You don't have to put buttons on the phone. The phone will do that itself. I'm going to stop this rant now. The Photon Q, outside of an unlockable bootloader, a physical keyboard, and having on-screen buttons, is also an awesome phone just in itself. And I can't believe how excited I am getting about a Motorola phone, because you guys know I hate Motorola phones. I mean, you know this. I don't like the hardware. I can't stand their UI. But I'm actually kind of excited about the Motorola Photon Q. It's extremely bizarre. I have pictures. The Photon Q has a 4.3-inch QHD display with color boost technology. Now, I know what you're thinking, QHD, why not HD, 1280 by 720? I don't know. Ask Motorola, not me. 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, an 8-megapixel camera, with a front-facing camera that captures HD video. And then, the usual, a gig of RAM, 8 gigabytes of internal memory, NFC, HDMI. It is going to be an LTE device on Sprint, Android 4.0, with a 1785 milliamp hour battery. So overall, it's gonna be a great phone, and I don't really get excited about phones anymore. And as excited as I am about the Photon Q, my excitement will die off in a couple of hours. But I don't really get excited about phones anymore because they're all kind of the same, and maybe that's why I am so excited about the Photon Q, because it's a little bit different. It has a QWERTY keyboard, it has on-screen buttons, which should not be unique. It's sad that it is. I mean, all Android phones should have on-screen buttons. But anyway, maybe that's why I am so excited about it, because it's just slightly different. But yeah, I don't know. This is a random thought and has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. But yeah, I don't really get excited about phones anymore because they're all the same. And not just Android phones. I'm talking about all phones. I'm talking about the iPhone, Android, Windows Phone, BlackBerry, if WebOS ever comes back. I mean, I'm talking about all phones. They're all the same. It's dual-core processor, or, if you're in Europe, you get a quad-core processor, whatever. Multi-core processor, HD display, whatever, Super AMOLED, Super LCD, friggin' amazing HD, Retina. It's got, a great camera, it's got 4G LTE, but they're all the same. There's nothing new to them. And this is maybe what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, the next big thing. And I talked about how I felt like RIM was trying to do that with BlackBerry 10, and so that remains to be seen, and so I can't just say that, BlackBerry 10 is going to be the same old thing, because I don't know. But as it stands, I know phones are getting better. I know multi-core processors are faster. I know the displays are getting more clear, HD resolutions. I know the colors look better. I know the data technology is getting faster. I know all of that, but they're still just phones. They're still just, multi-core processors, great displays, great cameras, blah, blah, blah. I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I am kind of excited about the Photon Q, so that's kind of new. That's a little different. And a Motorola phone, of all things. Totally random. The Sony, oh my gosh, we are almost out of time. We have 5 minutes. The Sony Mint, an early preview of the Sony Mint, tons of details on this, and I don't have time to, we won't have time to talk about all of it, but I do want to share these pictures with you, and then you can obviously check out the article on phonedog.com. So the Sony Xperia Mint, it's an Android phone. I have a ton of pictures that I will show you, but just a quick specs recap: 4.3-inch HD display, 1280 by 720. We're hearing reports that it's actually going to be a 4.6-inch display, so I don't know, 4.3-inch, 4.6-inch, 1280 by 720, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, gig of RAM, NFC, non-removable battery, Android 4.0 with 13 megapixel camera, and then Sony's UI on top of that. So, a pretty hot phone. Here's a couple of, actually a ton of pictures. This website got basically the phone to do a review, and the site basically did a review of the phone. Now, it's not officially being called a review because it's a pre-release model, so the software isn't final release software. There's a couple of things that could be changed, so it's not an official review because we don't know if this is actually what it's going to be like. But still, it's a very detailed review, and so there's a ton of pictures. First of all, the hardware. You can see, again, the display, 1280 by 720, and then this is, pictures comparing it to the Samsung Galaxy S3. The reviewer said the display was actually kind of disappointing, that colors were washed out. There was kind of a blue hue to all of the blacks, and then the whites were just too washed out. So, I don't know. I would expect more from a Sony phone. They typically have great displays, but we'll have to see. And then you can see some of these, a little bit of the UI and the software features. There's this feature where you can have small app small apps on the lock screen, and so it's kind of like smaller versions of the apps on the lock screen. It's kind of an interesting feature, but you can see a little more of the UI and the app drawer. And this is kind of nothing new. It's basically Sony's Android UI. It does still have Timescape. You can see the virtual keyboard here, and the messaging interface, and then some of the themes that you can choose. Like I said, this review, it's pretty exhaustive. And then some of those features that I was talking about. He also benchmarked it against, this is the small apps feature that I was talking about. He also benchmarked it against the Galaxy S3, the Galaxy Note, and a couple of other devices, and the results were pretty disappointing. Some of those benchmark results will show up right here. So you can see 5,992, and then the quadrant standard, I actually can't see that number, but when he compared it to the Galaxy S3, the Galaxy S3 scored like a 9,000 or something, whereas the Sony Mint, the Sony Xperia Mint scored a 5,000, as you saw. So, despite having a Snapdragon S4 processor, the benchmarks were pretty horrible. And so, overall, he said in his review, it sounds great on paper. 4.3-inch HD display sounds great. That dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, it sounds great. The 13-megapixel camera, it sounded great, but actually in use, it was disappointing. Like I said, the display, he said, was pretty disappointing. He said the viewing angles were unbelievably small. The color reproduction wasn't that great. The camera also was disappointing. There's a couple of new things that Sony did with the hardware. So the power key, the volume keys, and the camera shutter key are all placed on the bottom half of the right side. So they're all in this little strip on the bottom half of the right side, which is typically where just the camera shutter key is. It's usually just that one key, but they're all right there. And according to Sony, this was done to make use with one hand easier. So they're all right there, and you can kind of just reach down and press them. But he said, that sounds good, but actually whenever I was using it, I would accidentally press the volume key, and I actually wanted the camera key, or I would actually press the power key when I just wanted the camera key. So it was actually more frustrating than helpful. Shipping with Android 4.0 is definitely a huge improvement. Some Sony phones in the past have shipped with Android 2.3 when 4.0 was available, and it's just unacceptable. It's just ridiculous. You just can't do that. So this one actually ships with Android 4.0, so that's nice. Now there's a chance that some of these disappointments, like the benchmarks, those horrible, 5,000 compared to 9,000 on the Galaxy S3, this still has a Snapdragon S4 processor. There's a chance that that's just because maybe this is pre-release software, and so maybe there's just some bugs or it's not performing quite right. So there's a chance that will improve, that the camera, it was disappointing, but there's a chance that will improve once this software is kind of tweaked a little bit. But overall, I think he was pretty disappointed. But you can read that full review again. Like I said, it's on Phone Dog. But that's the Sony Ericsson Mint. And that's all the time we have for news. I did want to mention one quick awesome note. If you're a T-Mobile customer, or if you just like phones, which probably all of you do, the HTC One X Plus. If you guys heard about the HTC Era 42, maybe like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, the Era 42 was rumored, and it was rumored to be another phone in the G series, like the original G1, the G2. The Era 42 was rumored to be like that next, stock Android flagship T-Mobile Android phone. And the reasoning for that was because the original G1 had the word Era in its name, and so now Era popping up again. 42 is kind of thought to meant 42 megabits per second, T-Mobile's HSPA Plus network. So now we're hearing about a phone called the HTC One X Plus, and that supposedly is the HTC Era 42, which is, if you're a T-Mobile customer, this is pretty freaking awesome, because T-Mobile gets awesome phones. They got the G1, they got the G2, they got the Galaxy S3, there's a couple of phones where they always seem to have that iconic flagship phone. but that's it. Like outside of that, they usually have like one awesome phone, and then everything else is like great, but second best or third best or something. So to hear that T-Mobile could get the HTC One X Plus, the better version of the one on AT&T, this is pretty big news. In particular because the One X Plus is rumored to have a Tegra 3 processor, which, as you know, is a quad-core processor, which we do not have in the US yet. So if this rumor is true, I'm a little bit skeptical, simply because we don't have phones with quad-core processors, and there's reasons for that. For them to automatically just ditch those reasons, or automatically magically find a way around them, I don't see that happening. But if it is true, 1.7 gigahertz Tegra 3 processor, and then basically the HTC One X, possibly coming to T-Mobile, and that's pretty exciting. The rumored release date is September 26th. So if you're a T-Mobile customer, there's some good news for you. But let's move on to the open Q&A. Feel free to ask me questions, and I will answer them. I will be on Facebook. But you know the drill. I forget about Facebook a lot. So, okay. Sydney, I heard that the Galaxy S2 was heading to Boost Mobile. Any chance it could make its way to Virgin Mobile? Do you think any other 4G Sprint phones can come to Virgin? Yeah, I heard about the Galaxy S2, the Epic, coming to Virgin Mobile. There's another phone coming to Virgin Mobile. It is not the 1V. Well, the 1V is on Virgin Mobile. The Kyocera Rise, I think that's what it was. The PCD Chaser, but that's not a great phone. I wouldn't really recommend that. Oh yeah, the Galaxy Reverb. So there's a couple of phones coming to Virgin Mobile. The Kyocera Rise has a physical keyboard, 3.5-inch, 320 by 40 display. Not that great, and it's not a 4G phone, so maybe you wouldn't be interested in that. My voice just cracked. The second one, the Samsung Galaxy Reverb, this is also not a 4G phone, but it's 4-inch WVGA display, 5-megapixel camera, a 1.4 gigahertz processor, Android 4.0, so it's still a great phone. But outside of that, no 4G phones coming to Virgin Mobile. Not that I hate asking you questions, Sydney, but can you ask Aaron to do a 1-hour Q&A from time to time? Sure. I'm pretty sure if he could, he would. Aaron is actually extremely busy. I know this because I work with him, and so I try to get in contact with him all the time. And he's got meetings, like, literally all day, every day. And I don't even know what these meetings are about, but it's literally all day, every day. He has meetings or phone calls or something. And so I'm not sure that he would actually have time, but I'm sure he would try to make time if he could. So yeah, I could tell him. Considering your opinion on MacBooks, what are your thoughts on the Microsoft Surface with keyboard? Yeah, I'm really interested in the Microsoft RT version, because that's basically like Windows Phone on a tablet. And that I'm really interested in. That I'm really excited about, because I want a Windows Phone tablet, and that's basically as close as I'm going to get. And so yeah, the keyboard is actually kind of interesting. I like the idea of the way that they did it. So I'm definitely going to try it. A lot of it's going to depend on the price, but I do want to get some hands-on time with it. I think Sprint has a Windows Phone with a keyboard. Yeah, the Arrive, but it's pretty old. Hey Sid, I saw that you've placed the Atrix HD at number 4 on your ranking this week. I thought you disliked Motorola, or their hardware at least. Yeah, I don't like Motorola's hardware, or their UI, but that's personal. I can't deny that the Atrix HD is, in my opinion, the 4th best phone on the market right now. And so, I don't know, for me, I kind of try to take my personal preferences out of it when I do that rankings. The Atrix HD, Android 4.0, 4.5-inch HD display, 8-megapixel camera, 0 shutter lag, if you watch some of those HD samples, they're great. They're just really great. Dual core processor, and it's an LTE phone, and it's only $100 on contract. So yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't go for the Motorola Atrix HD, but that's me. I would still recommend it to somebody else because they might like Motorola. So yeah, that's why I put it on there. I also don't like Apple, but I had the iPhone 4S as number one for a long time until all these new phones came out, and basically they blow it out of the water. This question, would you even consider Windows Phone 8 not going to older phones fragmentation? Oh, okay. I read it out loud because when I read it to myself, I didn't understand it. Would I consider fragmentation? Yes, and I'm extremely disappointed by that. And one of the reasons why I'm not that upset is because one, I hope that it never happens again, and Microsoft has said that it won't. If it does, I will be very, very upset, but I'm hoping that it will never happen again. Two, I can understand they completely switched their kernel. I mean, it's basically like a different operating system. It's not just another version of Windows Phone 7. It's like a completely new operating system, so I can kind of understand. But yeah, no, that upsets me, and I hope it never happens again. Will you watch the Olympics? I don't know. I might. I've been sort of watching some of the men's basketball exhibition games. Not a lot because they're exhibition games, and so they're basically like preseason. And the fact that USA team is taking it so seriously is hilarious. But so yeah, I don't know. I probably will just because it'll be on TV, but I don't know. Some of the, I just don't know about every single sport, so it just depends on which ones I'm interested in. How come Aaron doesn't do Phone Dog Live? Because, like I said, I'm available and he's not. So I am going to check Facebook. And you know what? I am going to ban you for continuing to ask that question. Oh, wow. Facebook is all screwed up. Why is Facebook not working properly? Hold on, if you're on Facebook, I'm trying to... Huh. Okay, Facebook is not loading, so... Okay. Okay, so if you're on Facebook, I can't see any comments. I don't know if you guys are having this problem also, but the page isn't rendering properly, so yeah, I won't be able to see any of those comments. So head over to Ustream if you can, or on Twitter, I guess, if you want to. Sydney, what are your thoughts on the LG Miracle? LG Miracle. I would have to Google that phone. Surprised I don't have that on my cheat sheet. Okay, so it's it's a rumored phone. Okay, it's a Windows Phone device. That's why I was looking in the wrong section. My sheet is divided by Android, Windows Phone, and all that. So, okay, the LG Miracle. It's still not on my sheet. I don't know why. I'm gonna move on, just because I don't want to miss any more questions. I'm an owner of 7 tablets in total, 3 playbooks, Nexus 7, Motorola Zoom, Old Galaxy Tab, and Galaxy Tab 8.9. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. What do you think of the design of the Xperia S? Xperia S looks awesome. I like the design. Yeah. It looks good. I like it. I like the little bar that changes colors. Have you ever developed an app? I've not. I have not. What do you oh, I just answered that. Is the 16GB Nexus 7 available again? Well, let me go to the Google Store for you, and I will check that. Let's see. Play.google.com. Nexus 7, 16 gigabyte. Coming soon. There. How has your day been? Pretty good. Pretty exciting and eventful. Yes. Since it is Q3, any news on more specific dates for ice cream sandwich updates? You'd have to give me a specific phone because there's about 100 phones on the market right now. So, if there's anyone in particular you're thinking of, I could tell you. Oreos or Chips Ahoy? Oreos. Is there a Phone Dog app? No. But our PhoneDog.com site has been formatted to work on mobile devices. I know a lot of people have commented on this, and you may not be understanding exactly how it works. So you no longer have to type in m.phonedog.com. You can just, on your cell phone, go to phonedog.com, and it will, register that you are on a mobile device, and then it will reformat the page. I can actually show you, because I have a shortcut. So it'll reformat the page so that everything will just be in one column. So you don't have to zoom out. You don't have to scroll over to the other column. It's all on one column. So you can see here first is the exclusive articles, and then you can scroll down and it will eventually go to the latest mobile news. So it's all one column. So it's now formatted to automatically, do that whenever you're on your mobile device. So you don't have to go to m.phonedog.com. You don't have to zoom out and scroll around. You can just load it, and it'll be basically in a mobile format. And then when you load an article, it will reformat the text to wrap to your screen. So you don't have to, zoom in, and it'll auto-fit it automatically. Comments also show up. Even on your mobile device, they show up now. So, yeah, so we don't really need an app because it's basically formatted already. Okay. Have you updated your MacBook Pro to Mountain Lion? I haven't yet. I completely forgot about it, honestly, until today. Like I said, I was in the App Store looking at Sparrow, and they had the banner there, Mountain Lion. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. So I haven't done it yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to. It's not, a completely, huge update. There are a couple of awesome features, but they're features that I'm not sure I would use too much. But I probably will update eventually, just not right now. Not using the One S anymore. No, I went back to Windows Phone. I told you guys I switched to Android for like a month, and then I went back to Windows Phone. And then I got the One S, and it's such an awesome phone. It really is. The hardware is killer. The display is like, sometimes I would just look at it and just be like, God, this display is amazing. And no, I love that phone. And I used it for like 2 months. And you guys saw the customizations I did to it. It's pretty awesome. But I couldn't do it. After 2 months, I'm back on Windows Phone. I don't know, I like Windows Phone. I mean, everyone has their own personal preferences. I mean, Android was great. I didn't really have any, gripes. It just, I prefer Windows Phone. And also, I'm so bought into the ecosystem. I'm so used to using OneNote. And even though there's an Android application, it's not the same. I'm used to the mail system, the mail client on Windows Phone. It is so much better than Android. That I will say. The mail client on Windows Phone is so much better. I'm just so bought into the ecosystem that I'm trying to make my Windows Phone life fit into Android, and it just doesn't work. It'd be like if you were trying to make your Android life fit into Windows Phone. You have to buy into the ecosystem, and I've done that. So it's too late for me. I'm a goner. Have you sold your Kindle Fire yet? I haven't. I still have it. Yeah. You want to buy it? No, I'm just kidding. It's 5:01, actually. I just realized that. So let me get just a couple of last minute questions, and then I gotta go, and the show will be over. Did you hear about the 10.1-inch Kindle Fire? I did. I did hear about that. Sydney, you see the people's charts, and even the experts' charts have the One X at second and the Evo 4G LTE not even on the list. Yeah, I'm not. Is that a question? I'm not sure what you're getting at. It's 2301 here. I'm such a rebel. 2301. That would be, you're in 24-hour time, so that would be 11:01 p.m. That's not that late. What tablets would you consider iPad killers? Transformer Prime, I would. Nexus 7, I think, is a great competitor, mostly because of the price. And it's such a great tablet, but it is so inexpensive. I've said this before. I don't think we need an iPad killer. The iPad doesn't need to go away. The iPhone doesn't need to go away. We just need other products that can compete, because if I don't like iOS, then I should be able to get a comparable product that's a different operating system. There's people that like iOS, that like the iPad, and that like the iPhone. So it doesn't need to go away, because those people deserve to have what they want. We just need something that's comparable in case someone doesn't like iOS. They can have an Android tablet that works just as well, or a Windows Phone tablet or Windows Phone that works just as well. So, iPad killers, I don't believe in. I don't think they're necessary, but, those tablets, the Transformer Prime, I think that's, if you don't want the iPad, but you want an awesome tablet, Transformer Prime, I think is another great option. So, thank you guys for watching. I had a blast. I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed it. If you missed anything, again, the recording will be on YouTube, hopefully tomorrow. And again, I'll have a timeline there. Guys on YouTube, you can leave your questions also, and I read those. I try to answer some if I can. But anyway, I guess that's it for me. I'll see you guys later, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time next week, Friday on Ustream, and we'll have another great show. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.